Welcome to the New Planner Podcast, where it's all about helping you successfully enter the financial planning profession and accelerate your financial planning career. This podcast will help you understand the profession, become familiar with the various career paths available to you, and avoid the mistakes that limit your success. Join your host, Caleb Brown, to explore the human side of creating a successful planning career through interviews, personal experience, and insights from the trenches. Let's get started.
Welcome to the 199th episode of the New Planner Podcast. This is Caleb Brown, your host. My guest today is Zac Cravez, who is an associate financial advisor at Edge Financial Advisors in Chicago, Illinois. Zac has joined the show today to share how his entrepreneurial father raised him with the appreciation for financial planning, how he began taking personal finance classes as early as 14 years old, which helped him set the stage for him going to college for corporate finance. He went on to share how he found his first job after college and why the large broker-dealer ultimately wasn't the right fit for him. He discussed his desire to join an RIA and why he resigned without another job lined up. Stay tuned for what Zac considers to be the most fun parts of his job, what he is working on now, and some other tips for new planners. I hope you enjoy this episode with Zac Cravez. Hey, Zac, welcome to the New Planner Podcast.
Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. This is going to be really fun. I've been wanting to catch up with you, and here we go. So why don't we just start with how you got interested in financial planning, and then we'll eventually get to sort of where you are now and what you're doing and what your future plans are. So you just take it away. How'd you get started?
Yeah, definitely. So I had a very unique opportunity when I was younger. I was in middle school applying for high schools. Most people just go to their local high school. And we had a magnet school around where I lived. I grew up in South Florida, and they had an Academy of Finance. And so I applied and I happened to get in, and the first finance class I ever took, I was 14 years old. It was about budgeting and personal cash flow. And it sounds weird when it comes to, saying I love stuff like that, but that's really what drew me in the first place. I just had such a love for that class. It seemed so obvious to me that was something that should be taught all around the country in every school and taught to every single person. But it's the sad reality that it's not. So I took that class and various other finance classes. And then I went on to get my degree in finance, graduating 2022. And then I found my way into the financial planning industry. It took a while, but we got here.
That's amazing to me. That the magnet school, that's really cool. They had that in your area. I mean, it's like, listen, at 14 years old, you're talking about cash flow. I mean, like, how exciting is that? It's just like,
yeah, it was.
Most 14-year-olds these days, I feel like, would be like, no, where's my phone?
Yeah, I will say most of my classmates at the time were not as interested in the class as I was.
Got it. And were your parents, or do you have any family members in financial planning?
Yeah, I don't have any family members in financial planning. My dad, he was an entrepreneur while he was working, and I have always looked up to him. And he used to talk about his financial advisor and financial planner and how he was such a great guy that always, really wanted to help him and would go out of his way to do that. And so I think making that connection in my head, just, looking up to my dad and seeing the people that he talked about and the people that he really valued and appreciated, it made me want to be, that person for other people.
So you saw that early on, it sounds like, as a reputable profession, which I think you're in the minority. A lot of people most people don't have that experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And I started to realize that as time went on, and I, started to meet more people and kind of talk about what I do now. It's interesting when you bring up financial planning and financial advice, there's a negative connotation that goes with it, which, I get it. There's all different types of financial advisors and financial planners. So it makes sense, but you got to just look at the financial planners that are really looking out for you and what's in your best interest.
Yeah, we had Cody Garrett on. He was talking about trying to change the public's perception, along with lots of other people. But I want to go back to something you said. You're in South Florida, but then you end up going to college in Indiana.
Yep.
Right? Aren't you going the wrong way? Aren't people trying to go from the snowy Midwest to down to Florida, and you're moving up to the snowy Midwest?
You are 100% right. And, I wasn't even thinking about it at the time, but I really just wanted to look for something that got me out of my comfort zone. There's a quote that really resonates with me, and I can't remember who says it, but the best things in life hide behind fear. And so I moved to Indiana. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know a soul there. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. I stayed in the Midwest. I'm in the Chicagoland area now. And I met some great people, and more importantly, I found my true passion.
Yeah, I mean, talk about pushing yourself out. I mean, one, that's really cool. It's like, look, I'm not going to be comfortable. And I mean, it just, whether it's books or podcast, I mean, just you look at all the successful people out there, and I would say that's probably a common denominator, characteristic. They constantly did not let themselves get comfortable and push themselves beyond what they thought they can do. They had mentors and did other things, and maybe some of them had lucky breaks along the way, but I mean, I hear that time and time again. So kudos to you. So you graduated, you moved, you do what every Big Ten graduate does, right? After they graduate a Big Ten school, don't you all go to Chicago and find a job?
Yep. You are spot on. Pretty much everyone I knew from Indiana moved to the Chicagoland area. So I got a good group of people around me, but yeah, you're 100% right. And I came out of school. I actually started my first position at a big broker dealer. And that was certainly a different experience than kind of what I'm working with now. So, and you actually helped me with that transition. So I greatly appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So you came out and it was a corporate finance degree or some sort of business degree. Is that what you got?
Yep, exactly. It was corporate finance.
Yeah. I mean, so they're really gearing you up to go work at a big bank or big financial. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. And that's what you did. You looked, I was at Bank of America or something like that. Is that where you went?
Yeah. So I was dually employed. I worked Bank of America, and I was also an employee of Merrill. And I was more on the Merrill Edge side of things. So it was more, consumer investments. And, I pretty quickly realized that world wasn't for me, just being at a huge corporation that's, so focused on the bottom line. And, the bottom line is very important. However, it's not the most important thing. In my mind, I really put an emphasis on helping other people. And I just did not get that feel from, what I was doing in my day to day there. It just didn't feel right. I would go home and I would have this kind of pit in my stomach. And so there was one day in particular where I just went home and I had made the decision that I needed to find something that was, more fitting for what I was looking for long term.
I have never actually worked in corporate America. And fortunately for me, I had one of my financial planning clients just constantly talking about his job. Like, man, they kill you, dude, because it's a publicly traded company, and so the stock will go up 10 cents a share. And I mean, like, it's just, and then the next quarter, it's like, well, we got to do double that. So it'll go up another 10. And it's like, it's a hamster wheel. And so anyways, I just like, I've only gotten sort of the one side of the story, but okay. So, but you joined a big firm. So talk about some of the positive. I mean, like the pros, like training, talk us through some of that.
Yeah. So I was in a program. It was called the Advisor Development Program. And so I came in under the impression that I was going to work towards becoming an advisor at Merrill full time. It was great in some senses. I got my licensing. They guided me through the process of, studying. They gave me the resources in terms of how to form those relationships with people that you've never really met before. And truthfully, that's a big problem with my generation. Always having screens in front of us is it's not everyone's as personable as they used to be, at least what I hear. And so, I met some really good people. I found some good mentors there. Some people that I still stay in contact with today. But at the end of the day, it was one of those positions where your paycheck at the end of the month depended on, what you produce. And coming out of college, it was not that, that was not the environment that I was necessarily looking for. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't view myself as a salesperson. I don't look at myself as the person that's going to be selling investments or anything like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's just not who I am. And so I didn't fit into that environment.
So were you in one of like the branches or something where people would walk in and kind of like, hey, you need to go meet with Zac if you, I remember one time I made a deposit and I didn't think it was, I mean, I was like, I don't know, a couple $1,000s or something. It wasn't a lot of money. And at my bank, and somebody went back and said, hey, you try to get him to meet with like this other person. I'm like, is that really what's going on? Is that what happened with you?
That is exactly what's going on. So I was in a Merrill office. So we had a Merrill office inside of a Bank of America financial center. And the Bank of America employees that were, just employed by Bank of America, they had their own set of kind of incentive, just financial incentives. And one of their big incentives was to get people in front of me. And so that's something I learned while I was there was, I mentioned learning how to build those relationships. And part of the reason was because I was having these conversations and I was talking to people about things that they didn't necessarily come in to talk about and they didn't necessarily want to talk about. And so it was kind of about finding creative ways to, get the person in front of me to lower their gloves and be able to have a genuine conversation. And so you're 100% spot on. That's exactly what happens in the background. But I did definitely gain some valuable things from that experience.
So talk a little bit about your progression. You were there, you knew it wasn't probably a long-term fit.
Yeah.
And then how did you start looking at RIA, registered investment advisor, RIA firms?
Yeah. So great question. So I mentioned before, there was kind of a day I went home from work and I just had this feeling in my stomach, just knowing that what I was, being asked to do was not the thing that I felt was right for the people that I was working with. And so I made the decision that day that I was going to put my 2 weeks in notice the next morning. And that's what I did. I didn't have a backup plan. I know
you quit. You quit without wow.
I didn't have a backup plan. I had faith and I had trust. And it being in the financial planning industry, I know that's not the greatest plan. But there are some things that are more important than finances, and well-being is one of those things. And for me, it was more important to be able to look at myself in the mirror and be happy with the person that I was, as opposed to getting a steady paycheck. Shortly after that, it became my full-time job to look for different jobs. And I was looking all across finance. I was looking, mostly in financial planning, but I definitely threw out a couple applications to more corporate finance roles. Shortly after that, I found you and you were able to connect me with Edge. And it's just been such a great fit ever since.
I want to come back to that and explore that further. I mean, what you're saying is what we hear a lot from the other advisors that we recruit out of the bank channel. It's like, yeah, there's a big list of clients and you can see their bank balances, but trying to get someone who's only invested in CDs to try to invest in the market, I'm like, it's a tough challenge and conversation. And it's just, and then, all of a sudden like, hey, even though they may want to do this, maybe it's not really in their best interest, and you kind of having to deal with that as well. So
exactly, yeah. And the big thing, there was one specific scenario that I'm thinking of that really led me to that decision to leave. But one of the people I worked with had told me, you got to find a reason to make the recommendation as opposed to make the recommendation for a specific reason. And as soon as I heard that, I was, I knew it wasn't right for me.
Okay. So we got connected. We put you in front of the firm that you're at now. I mean, an RIA. So why did you join this firm? I mean, I can't remember, but I think maybe you had a couple of other offers or other irons in the fire. So why did you end up joining this firm?
Yeah. So the last couple of weeks of my job search, I was, going around doing various interviews in person. And one of the big reasons that I settled on joining Edge was because of the community aspect. We're a smaller firm in the way that we only have 8 employees. There's 8 total of us. And I just remember going in for my interviews at other firms, and I would meet with, the owner or maybe a couple of the partners. And that was kind of it. And it almost felt like it almost felt like things were being hidden from me, where I wasn't able to meet the rest of, the people that I was going to be working with and interacting with on a day to day. And I remember my first interview with Edge, I spoke with the partners over the phone, and, they had asked me to come in and meet the team. And we all just sat down at the conference room table and we all just had a candid conversation. And, they just kind of let me share my piece. They let me share why I wanted to move into, a true financial planning position as opposed to, just kind of surface level. And it is such a great community feeling.
So it ended up working out. I mean, I guess they made the offer, you joined. I mean, just maybe talk to us about the first few months on that transition, on what you experienced, how it was different than your prior channel.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And so the real big thing is my job here, my number one job here is to learn, is to grow my knowledge base and eventually learn how to become a lead advisor. I'm an associate right now, and I help with a lot of kind of the back end planning, pre and post meeting work and interacting with clients that are just, calling in and whatnot. But the first couple months, there's definitely a big learning curve going from, okay, well, you should be investing in mostly stocks, but a little bit of bonds. And that was kind of where the relationship ended. We are doing in-depth comprehensive financial planning. And I did not realize when I took this job, I did not realize how in-depth you can really get in financial planning. And I just absolutely love how every scenario, there's a different solution. You have to be unique. You have to be creative when it comes to every client scenario, and you have to tailor to their actual needs as opposed to the needs that you kind of construct for yourself. And so it was a big transition, and I'm still learning, and I'll be learning for a long time. I'm working on getting my CFP right now. And I'm just kind of getting through the classes. I'm almost done with the classes, and then I'll sit for the exam and start taking on clients of my own.
That's great. I mean, it's like just hear you talk about the profession. I mean, fun, rewarding, challenging, exciting. That's what I'm hearing, you
Exactly.
say about this. And okay, so we'll talk to us about the CFP. So that was obviously not required to get hired. So, but it's required to continue to progress and maybe work up to the lead. Is that the way you have it set
Yeah,
up?
it's not necessarily required. I would say strongly encouraged. And I'm also the type of person that just always wants to continue learning and building my knowledge base. I find a lot of value in just learning new things, and especially in the industry that we're in, everything is changing. Nothing's the same as it was 20 years ago, especially with technology and AI developing now. There's a lot of change that's going on. And so it's really important to just be continuously learning. So I wouldn't say that it was required. It is definitely encouraged. I'd say strongly encouraged. I joined the firm. I didn't have any licensing or certifications further than my Series 7 and 66. And, it's not required to be a lead advisor. However, I am definitely motivated in the way that I always want to be learning. With just the ever developing industry that we are in, nothing is the same from year to year. Laws change, technology changes, strategies change based on, the two that I just mentioned. There's always something to learn, and there's always ways to improve yourself. And so that's kind of the big reason that I wanted to go down that route. And then also, I think it will really help with my confidence in talking to those, clients and prospective clients that are coming in. And it just, especially being a young person in the industry who's looking to take their own clients on in the next couple of years, it's not easy to be working with people that are 30, 40 years older than you, and they're looking at you kind of like a kid. And so in a way, it is also a validator in that way.
And maybe talk a little bit more about, I mean, what's your role, if any, in the client meetings right now? I mean, are the other partners, I think you said they're bringing you in there, but are you presenting one item or several items of the agenda, or responsible for some data gathering or something? How are they integrating you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm in all the client meetings. So my role in those meetings, I take notes for the lead advisor, but truthfully, we have AI for that now. So I kind of just take the very high level notes, the stuff that is absolutely crucial and that we don't want to miss it. But my real responsibility in those meetings is to pay attention to the presentation style of the lead advisor, pay attention to the reactions of the client, learn the psychology behind interacting, with people of different personalities. And, I certainly do take some of the responsibility when it comes to presentations. We start off just with one area and we're just slowly building up so that over time, I'm taking more and more responsibility in the meetings. And that's kind of the game plan going forward, especially with the clients. Some of the clients might be transitioned from the lead advisor over to me at some point in time. And so, that helps with that transition.
I remember a long time ago when I was getting started out, something that helped build my confidence. Just so I'm an Aiton Colby fact finder, so I really want to get the details, and I would just get in there and just comb through all their information and just get on the phone and just ask them questions. And there wasn't really a lot of downside, and there's a lot of upside. Like, oh, thanks for letting us know that. Oh, that's missing. And it made me feel better and had more confidence. And it was kind of an easy at bat to get started to work into some of the other more maybe complicated or sensitive things. So I think it sounds like you're kind of doing something similar.
Yeah, exactly.
On that as well. Yeah. Okay. So you've been there about a year. I mean, we were talking before we came on there, a little over a year. So what have been some of the more challenging things and some of the things that you're working to improve?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say just off the bat, this is easily the most challenging thing that I've been presented with, coming into a firm that has hundreds of clients, not knowing anyone, and, immediately being a part of all client meetings and communications and stuff like that. It takes a while to learn the personalities of each individual client and their situation. And, that's more of a one-off thing when you're joining a new firm, but that's definitely been something that I've been trying to focus on. Even now, a year later, there's still clients that I'm getting to know for the first time. And so that's one thing. But truthfully, the biggest thing is just there's always something more that you can do to put a client in a better situation, not just financially, but mentally when it comes to their plan. And so I'm really fascinated with the idea of behavioral finance. I have a big passion for it. And just, learning about the psychology behind it. And so that's, my big focus right now is learning kind of how different personalities interact and, how to, for lack of a better term, influence people that have, different mindsets and come from different places.
Yeah, we had George Kinder on a few episodes ago to talk about sort of just becoming a life planner and sort of how he developed all that and getting into more of the behavior and psychology stuff. Hey, I want to go back to something. I mean, it sounds like you're aware of sort of things you need to work on. It sounds like it's going really well, which is fabulous. Because sometimes these transitions don't go as planned. People get over there like, oh, but you said something earlier. You said, I'm getting paid. My number one job is to learn. And I was just thinking about that. And then you said, well, now AI is taking the notes for us and I'm not really doing that. So what is your value proposition? Why do these guys at Edge keep you around?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say I am still taking notes. I just don't take notes on all the details as much. But the real reason they keep me around, aside from having good relationships with all of our clients and us all kind of getting along in that way, it's really an investment for them. The long-term play is for, me to become a lead advisor, bring clients on and bring clients to Edge. And, of course, my pay will go up, but so will the partners and, so will their bottom line. And so not only is it an investment for me in more so just investing my time and my desire to learn and stuff like that, it's an investment for them. It's a financial investment, and it's an investment to grow the firm, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
How does that make you feel knowing that in the future, at some point, could be a couple of years, could be a lot longer, that you're going to have to bring in clients to the firm? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So maybe I misspoke, because there's never been pressure from the day I joined Edge. There's never been pressure to bring clients in. It's one thing to go to a meeting with a prospect that reached out and just kind of learn about them, but I don't really view that as bringing a client in a salesy way. So I've never felt that pressure. I should say, since leaving my previous job, I have not felt that pressure. And I'm very thankful for that. And, we're working on various marketing strategies. And that's another thing that I work on, pretty frequently is marketing and branding for the firm as a whole. And just working on these different campaigns, it almost gives me peace knowing that the campaigns and the marketing that we're doing now is partially with the intent of bringing clients in for myself 5 years down the road. And so I see that as an investment in myself as it stands currently.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Zac, this has been awesome, man. Thanks for filling us in on your journey. Is there any final tips or words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with?
I would say if you are looking to get into the financial planning industry, it might be intimidating, and, trust me, it is, but you have to take the first step forward. It's the most important thing. Reach out to people that you can learn from, whether it's, if it's not even for an interview for a job necessarily, just reach out to people, talk to them. We used to refer to it as an informational interview, and just pick their brain. How did they get into the industry? Stuff like that, network. And that's really the key to success moving forward and to growing yourself professionally.
So glad to have you in the profession, Zac. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Caleb.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the New Planner Podcast. If you're ready to discover the top career paths for financial planners and see which track is best for you, we created a free guide to help you. Grab your copy of the Financial Planner Career Roadmap at newplannerrecruiting.com/roadmap. There, you'll also find more tools and resources all created to help you build a successful financial planning career. Tune back in next week for another episode, and until then, we're here to help you succeed.